So here is Matt Baker's evolution of the alphabet diagram from 4 years ago. To point out some of the errors, he has the letter plus sign turning into a T. He has the Phoenician so-called Tasadi turning into an M. All of these are incorrect except for the Djed pillar, which comes from the 4 pillars of Byblos. And he has the Phoenician Y turning into a Greek F, which is incorrect. Here is the evolution of the alphabet diagram based on, or starting with, Baker's diagram I made 1 year and 5 months ago. The incorrect errors in this. Chart made on 27 December A67 are that I don't know where letter D came from, the delta. I then believe that the letter H came from 8 shoe pillars, which is incorrect. I didn't know where letter N came from. You see here I have the water line for the origin of the Phoenician N and Greek N. I didn't know where letter S came from. I have this so-called folded cloth shown for the origin of letter N. And I put question marks where I was uncertain. So today I made the newly updated evolution of the alphabet chart with all of the latest decodings. This chart was prompted because of the so-called Phoenician horned O shown here, which has 2 horns. And where this came from was about 2 or 3 days ago I did the Pekoki Kidian inscriptions, which were inscribed by Richard Pekoki in 1745 when he traveled to Cyprus Island, the town of Cardian, and recorded these Phoenician characters. So, and when I started doing the trends, I took line 2, shown here, 2.1, and I was interested in studying the so-called horned B, because I decoded this 2 years ago and I wanted to do the rest of the characters. So this resulted in this diagram, wherein we see that I have this so-called horned beta with, not horned beta, but 2 arms on top of the breast, which comes from the C199 glyph. So these new glyphs just came to me from the so-called Doros A Aegyptus manual, where if we go to B, C199 is the horned Phoenician bee. So this is new information for me. I just printed in the last week or two. So in order to decode this sentence, over here we see I was stuck on the so-called Phoenician Tassadi. I have question marks here. This is from 3 days ago. I got to the horned O, which was new to me. I mean, I've seen it before in Jean Bartholomew's Phoenician translations, but I've never done the Phoenician to Egyptian translation. So knowing that O has to do with Omega, and knowing that Hathor is the Egyptian goddess associated with Omega, and she has horns, I started with this, C9, and then I looked up Hathor and found that she's associated with the Eye of Ra. So I put these two together, D10, C9, Milky Way, Hathor, Eye of Ra. This gave me this decoding. C9 plus D10 gives you the horned Phoenician O. Or if you take the Eye of Ra, put it over Hathor, you see the horns coming out of the O. And I also have been reading Herodotus. Talks about how the daughter of my Sir Inus fell in love with his own daughter and thereafter had sex with her against her will, and the girl hanged herself. But then she also has horns that are in the likeness of the circle of the sun done in gold. So I was reading this last week or so. All these pieces fell together and I was able to decode the Phoenician O. That it's a combination of Hathor plus the Eye of Ra. So today I wanted to show how this split into O, Phoenician O split into O Omicron or O micro and Omega or macro O shown here. I wanted to make a diagram of this, and this resulted in while I was making the diagram, you see I decoded the Phoenician Tassadi here. I mapped it. I've been thinking about this, that it means letter T over the last month or two, but then I also found 3 different Egyptian Phoenician T's. This is from the Ramses 4-5 tomb, entrance D, and we see that entrance ceiling D, where we see that this is shorter and this is longer of the T, which matches with this being the Black Sea and this being the Mediterranean Sea, and this being a zigzag for these waters here in either the Nile or the Black Sea plus the Red Sea plus the Nile, or something along these lines. And this is the Mesha Steli T, Zin Girl Syrian T, which means that it was these letters were made in Syria over here. And also the Ne Rab Syrian T, where we see almost a perfect fit. So So we went from this long T to long T here, and it got it shortened. And now we have the TO map. So to quickly go through the diagram, since it's been a year and 5 months since I made the last diagram, and in the last diagram I didn't have the Egypto-Alphanumerics YouTube channel. I'm going to go through this diagram. So to begin with, the oldest alphabet letter is, not alphabet letter, but proto-alphabet letter is the cow yoke, which is number 10 Egyptian numerals, and it's dated to the black rimmed pots in Abydos, dated to 5700 A. Now we come to letter A, which is shown on Scorpion 2 Mace Head, Abydos, 5100 A. It's the U6 utility, Ho, and it is the origin of letter A. It's the Phoenician A. These are from the Isbet stone and Zayat stone, the only two Phoenician abecedaria that are known. So I mixed the two together to make a cogent series, which I'll talk about. And then here we see the Greek A from the Samos cup, which is the oldest 27-letter Greek abecedaria, which means abecedaria means alphabet letters in order. And this is A primed, which means it's A equal to 1,000, but reduces to A, or number 1, in modular 9 arithmetic. But the Egyptians always had the 28, lotus was 1,000, and all of the cubit rulers have 28 units, which means they went up to 1,000. But they had different symbols on each. Most of them had the double quail chick and a finger. So now we're up to letter B. Here we see heaven and earth having sex. This is the cardophonetic name is Jeb. It's not; these aren't certain names, so we're starting from the basics here. This is the basics. We know that this U shape upside down is number 10. So all of these, not all of these, but we'll talk about when you read these cardophonetic names based on so-called status quo Egyptology. You have to go back and find the source and who said this name was Bet, who said this name was Jeb, which I've already done for both of them. Which you can read articles in the Alphanumeric sub. But here we see Bet, and they're separated. And the thing that's separating them is air, which is Shu, their father. But Jeb is the earth, and this became transformed into the C199 hierotype. So here we see the letter D, we see the breast, and she's the stars of space, or stars above the earth, and then air separates them. This became the N1 hierotype, where we see the delta, upside, the Phoenician delta, the sun born out of the delta, and this became the Phoenician B, where we see the legs here, the breast, that's a nipple, this is from the Nora stone, and these are her hands, right here. And this is from the Gideon Cyprus inscriptions. So from line 2, or Gideon Phoenician inscriptions, we see that this is B, legs, breasts, arms, and this is a ram with his head about to headbutt. And these are the two horns of the ram. So there's a difference between, this has a bend, and this is the body of the ram. There's another one here. Phoenician B, arms. There's the omega with the horns. Now we're up to, this became the Phoenician B. The Norah stone Bs have nipples carved in stone, if you look that up, and this became the Greek B. And then the English B is by Noah Webster from 127a. So now Jeb, his cardophonetic name is the earth god. He became this goose, G38, which mathematically means 12.5 cubits squared. That means an area kind of like this for growing crops. 12.5 cubits by 12.5 cubits. So 12.5 cubits this is where the word geometry comes from. If you go to the Reddit God Geometry sub, you can learn more about this. So this erection became the Phoenician G. And here we see his ball sack on the bottom. This is a little difficult to conceptualize, but his back is here. So the normal male erection angle goes at about 72 degrees this way. If he puts his back down, the phallus will go this way, and you'll get the Phoenician G. And this became the Greek G, which is 90 degrees, which was designed specifically to make a 3-4-5 triangle. And Plato talks about this in Republic as the so-called perfect birth triangle, which you can read about in Alphanumerics, which I've made 12 more and more posts on. But the Greek G, and by the time we get to the English alphabet, gets switched into letter C and letter G, the 7th letter. Okay, so now we are up to letter D. So if we go back here, originally Ra, who is the most powerful god, put a curse, as the myth goes, on Jeb and Bet that they can't have sex any day of the year. And at this point, there's only 360 days in the year. So Thoth, who is the inventor of all of these hierotypes, wins 5 days of light from the moon god Khonsu and allows Jeb and Bet to have sex, and then reproduce the 5 epagomenal children, which means that 360 plus 5 equals 365 days, 365 day year. But the 5 children they birth come out of the triangle. So this is Jeb is 3, Bet becomes 4, and then the 5 epagomenal children come out over here. And so 5 squared gives the 25 alphabet letters, or the 25 main, supposedly either consonant alphabet letters and plus 3 vowels. So here, if we go over here, we see that the x equals 25 cubits squared, which is where the chi comes from, as we call it in Greek, or the plus sign in Phoenician, or this O49 in Egyptian. So this is where the cosmos is born. And this all has to do with, this is a mathematical cipher. So we see that 5 squared, this is the Egyptian Pythagorean triangle, gives us 25, where the cosmos is born. And the goose equals 12.5 cubits. And the G of the goose is the origin of geometry. And usually there's a leg. If you look up the hieroglyph of the god Jeb, there's a goose plus a leg. So the leg corresponds to 1 foot, or 16 cubits. And this, they use feet to measure the circumference of the earth, which is right here. And this is recorded by Aristotle. So Jeb and Bet birth out the 5 apogymenal children, and these come out at the hypotenuse, and according to Plutarch, they are Horus the Elder, which is some form of the falcon, the oldest known form of the Egyptian falcon; Osiris, which is loosely letter E; Set, which is letter Z; and then Nephthys, which is loosely letter F; and then Isis, which is loosely a part of letter E, which is not shown here aside from the tears of Isis, which we'll touch on.